Hello. So, we are working on the unit Drawing as a Skill, remembering that you are learning to draw by practicing the correct mindset and building on your skills. The unit is broken up into lessons where you learn a mindset, a concept, and then practice that concept with an exercise, focusing on building those skills all the time. Lots of practice needed to build those skills. Today's concept is mark making. It is the most basic concept of drawing. It basically means anytime you put your pencil or pen or whatever tool to the page, you are making a mark. And just like your handwriting is unique, each artist has their own unique style when they're creating their marks. So mark making is the foundation of all drawing. Today we're going to practice making different marks. The mindset I would like you to focus on today is that it is important to experiment and play when drawing. As you're creating your marks today, ask yourself, what happens if I do this? How will it look if I try this? Be open to new experiences and have some fun while you're creating this drawing. So the instructions are that you're going to divide the paper into 8 spaces and you're going to practice making the following marks, thinking about trying to hold your pencil in different ways and trying to use more or less pressure as you make the marks. Okay, so get your sketchbook out. So divide your paper up into 8 sections. The first thing you're going to do is kind of judge where the middle is. No big deal. You don't have to use a ruler. Just draw a line down the center to split up your page. Again, you're going to try to find out where the center is. Draw a line across the page. And now we need 8 spaces. So we're going to divide these spaces up in half and then in half again. All right, now we have 8 different sections for our different styles of mark making. The first one we are going to try is the one that you probably have been doing the longest in your life, and this is scribbling. To scribble, you use your pencil to create random marks going in multiple directions. The line can loop over itself. Really what you're trying to do is fill up the space with some creative, kind of loose mark making. Now, if you would like to experiment with pencil pressure, maybe add less pressure and see what kind of marks that makes. Hold your pencil toward the back, see what that does, and hold it on the tip to see what that does. Fill in the whole space with some random scribbly style marks. The next type of mark we're going to make is known as shading. So this is when you're trying to create a smooth transition from a dark value to a light value. It helps to hold your pencil toward the back and to use the edge of the pencil point, not the tip of the point, but hold your pencil on an angle so you can use the edge. Apply more pressure to make it a darker mark, and then decrease the pressure as you move across the page to lighten up your value. It helps to go over the area that you're trying to shade multiple times. Now experiment. What happens if you hold the pencil closer to the point and you do little circular motions instead of doing like flat line strokes? See if you like to do it that way. See if that way works better for you. Most often, holding the pencil toward the eraser side is easier when trying to create a smooth shade from dark to light. Okay, so experiment. This type of drawing takes practice. Okay, this particular mark making may come easy to you, or you may need to do a couple of them, but definitely fill up your space with some dark to light, smooth shades. The next type of mark making is known as hatching. Hatching means lines that are parallel to each other to create either value or texture in a drawing. So notice how I'm creating little lines that do not cross over one another. The closer the lines are together, the darker it appears in that part of the drawing, and the farther apart they are, the lighter it appears. So go ahead and fill up the space with hatch marks that do not overlap and that go in different directions, and see what that does to your eye as you look at this type of mark making. A lot of people use hatching as a form of shading in a drawing. Hatching is also very effective as a texture making tool. The next style of mark making you're going to experiment with is very closely related to hatching. It is cross hatching. So cross hatching is very similar in that there are lines that you use to create value or texture. The difference between hatching and cross hatching is, you guessed it, the lines cross each other. So for this one, I'd like you to fill up the space. You remember to experiment with the way you're holding your pencil pressure, lightness, and darkness, and see if you can make areas that are darker and some areas that are lighter using cross hatching. For your next mark making experience, you are going to try out some contour lines. Now, a contour line is kind of a fancy way of saying an outline. Whenever you're drawing something, if you just draw the outer part of it, you are creating a contour line drawing. For this one, I like to experiment with some concentric circles, so creating a circle shape and then kind of using contour lines to trace around the outside edge of those circles. So create a design using only contour lines. Don't forget to experiment with pencil pressure and the grip that you're holding your pencil with. All right, so we just finished contour lines, and now we're moving on to our next mark making, known as dots and dashes. Dots and dashes are a way to create broken lines when you are drawing. So maybe you're making a contour line, but you want to make it a little more interesting or give it some texture. You can use dots and dashes instead. And notice how not all of my dots and dashes are the same length. You can also use them to create like a furry looking texture. You can not only go in straight lines, but you can also go in curved lines when you're creating dots and dashes. Remember, the key here is to find out what your specific style will be. The next mark making we are going to try is stippling. Now, stippling, or to stipple, is just creating dots on the page. The closer the dots are together and the more dots there are, the darker that area will appear. The farther apart the dots are, the lighter it will appear. This is a great tool for shading, but it also could be a great tool for texture. Stippling is definitely a labor-intensive mark-making process, so it does take a long time, but the results are usually beautiful. All right, the last box. We're going to fill this up with the eraser mark making process. So in order to use the eraser mark making process, you first have to shade the square with some graphite. So make sure you're using the edge of that point. And then you're going to use the eraser as a mark making tool. So you're drawing in to where you have just shaded and you're taking away the graphite. And this will create the reverse of a dark line, right? It creates a light line. So make a design or some sort of experiment with what the eraser can do as a mark making tool. All right, well, we got a bonus. We got a bonus one. This bonus is going to be circles. I'm including this one because it's, I think, the most fun type of mark making. I do it sometimes when I am just kind of zoning out and doodling. And this is to create large, medium, small, and tiny circles next to one another. It's another form of creating texture. You can create different values with this. So go ahead and experiment with circles or create one on your own. And don't forget, you can always go back in with that eraser and highlight certain areas to make the square look more, what you would like it to look like. Well, you did it. You got through the video. These are the 8 different types of mark making that you can experiment with in this exercise. Please head on over to Google Classroom, open assignment 15C. You're going to be creating this exercise in your sketchbook and then taking a photograph and posting it to the assignment so I can see what you were able to do. Don't forget to try to experiment with holding your pencil from different grips, either back by the eraser or closer to the point, and try to use more or less pressure as you make your marks and see what that will do. Have fun!